right, let's have some fun with these All-Australian teams. So we'll go line by line, and you can run your strategy eye over it, and then we'll see if the first team played the second team, what would it look like?
For sure.
So the back line for the All-Australian team is Tom Stewart, Stephen May, and Braden Maynard. Yep. In our second team, the forward line is Charlie Cameron, Tom Lynch, and Bailey Fritsch.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic. You look at the full forward line there for the second team. So Fritsch has kicked 50, Lynch has kicked 60, and Charlie Cameron's kicked 47. So they've got 157 goals in that full forward line alone. So great blend of power, contested marking in Lynch, that hard, fast, creative leading patterns of Fritsch, combined with the speed and crumbing ground level ability of Cameron. So we know Stewart and May are great 1v1 defenders, and they're elite aerial, but they will look to zone off, and they'll look to be that third up intercepting marking players that they've been all season. So they will be assisted if they get that midfield pressure and on their entries. But gee, I love the Maynard Cameron matchup. Yeah. That is mouthwatering, isn't it? And you know, Cameron has the speed and he's dynamic, but Maynard is aggressive. He's constantly at you physically, and he will not give Cameron an inch. So that little quartet there, that little group there of Stewart v Fritsch, May v Lynch, and Maynard v Cameron is exceptional. I just wish we could see this unfold. So, yeah, that's going to be awesome.
The halfbacks in the first team, Jack Sinclair, Sam Taylor, and Adam Sard. The half forwards in the second team, Tom Papley, Tex Walker, and Josh Kelly.
Well, I like the forwards here again in the second team, and I think Kelly will play high half forward, and he's got that endurance. He'll actually push up the ground. He's played mostly wing this year, but he'll get up the ground and push back. So he's a high possession player. He's clean. His kick inside 50 is really important. So I like that matchup of Kelly v Sinclair for the second team. Walker v Sam Taylor is intriguing as well. Like, Taylor is a great matchup for Tex Walker. So I don't think the second team can get the advantage there, because Sam Taylor's really strong in the air. He'll be right with Walker on those long leads that he goes on. But the matchup I don't like for the first team, I don't like the Papley-Sard matchup. So Papley's just too dynamic in the contest. And Sard and Sinclair, they're both forward hard runners off halfback. So I just think that second team, I think the second team forward line can turn them around. And I think Papley and Cameron could have a huge impact at the feet of Lynch and Tex Walker if they can just get the ball to ground. So I just feel like the second team might have the advantage here against the first team defence.
I love it. The centre line for the first team, Took Miller, Clayton Oliver, Callum Mills. And then the more traditional setup of the second team, Josh Dacos on the wing, Marcus Bontempelli in the middle, and Hugh McCluggage on the other wing.
Yeah, spot on, Gerard, and you've called that right. And this is where I think, though, the first team will get the advantage, their centre line. Miller's had a great year. He's a long, hard-running accumulator. He's a clearance winner. He's hard in the contest, but he hasn't played wing. So the only danger is if he gets drawn to the ball. So we know that Josh Dacos has had a great year for Collingwood. He'll hold width. He'll play in shape. So if the second team can access the outside and change angles, I think Josh Dacos will be out in a lot of space. So I think Dacos could be set for a really big game. I love the Oliver v Bontempelli. That's a brutal matchup inside the contest. Two exceptional leaders go head-to-head. I just think Oliver's probably got the better form, and we know Bont's been really banged up in the second half of the season. So I just think the first team have got the advantage there. And Mills v McCluggage on the other wing will be interesting too, because, as you said, Gerard, McCluggage is a natural wingman. He's a smooth, classy on-baller, and you just can't give him any time and space. So Mills is actually a good matchup for him, and you know how disciplined he is. He's task-orientated. He's a great young leader. But if that doesn't go to plan for the first team, on the bench you've got Blitzavs, and I know he's in the team as a tall defender, but I just think he could be a really challenging matchup, and you can put him on the wing on Dacos or McCluggage if one of those boys light up. So the thing with Blitzavs, he can play anywhere. He really is a utility. So he provides that defensive support. He gets back hard to provide like a seventh defender type matchup, but he's really strong aerial. So if things don't go to plan with Toot Miller and with Mills on the wing, I would put Blitzavs out there. You know he's strong in the air, and you know he can get back and plug some of those holes defensively. So that's how I would set up.
Let's stay with the on-ball brigade. In the first team, Max Gawn, Patrick Cripps, and Lockie Neal.
Yep.
And then in the second team, Jared Witts, Jack Crisp, and Sam Walsh.
Well, once again, I think the first team hold the advantage here. I think Gawn v Witts, I give the advantage to Gawn in hit-outs, but also around the ground with his impact. I mean, both great ruckmen that have obviously had exceptional seasons. But I just think Gawn has the advantage here. I also like Cripps and Neal to go head-to-head with Crisp and Walsh. And particularly, though, because you look at like Neal and Paddy Cripps, they average 15 clearances a game combined. So they're going to have a clear advantage around stoppage and clearance. So while Crisp and Walsh, they combine for just 8.5. So that's not their strength. They're more hard outside runners. They get from contest to contest. I just think Neal and Paddy Cripps are going to have the advantage inside the contest. So are they going to get beaten at stoppage and clearance, the second team? And if they're getting smashed around the contest, you can call on Warner from the Swans. He's on the bench. And we know Laird and McRae have had really good seasons. So Laird from Adelaide and McRae from the Bulldogs, they can come on and provide something just a little bit different in support around the contest if you find that Paddy Cripps and Lachie Neale are starting to heat up around contest and clearance.
Half forward in the All-Australian team, Christian Petrarca, Jeremy Cameron and Shea Bolton. Half back in the second team, Angus Brayshaw, Tom Barrass and Daniel Rioli.
Yeah, well, once again here, I think the first team get the advantage. I think Petrarca, Cameron and Bolton versus Brayshaw, Barrass and Rioli. And even with the Petrarca and Angus Brayshaw matchups, teammates, but I think Petrarca can take him up to stoppage. Well, he'll also get the advantage. And then he can push him forward after the contest because he's stronger in the air and he's probably stronger at ground level too. So that's not a great matchup, I don't think, for the second team, having Angus Brayshaw on Christian Petrarca. I mean, both obviously exceptional players. We know Brayshaw will look to run off, so Petrarca's got to make sure he's disciplined as well. He's got to respect Brayshaw's run off halfback, but I just think Petrarca going back the other way is going to have the advantage in that matchup. I also like the Jeremy Cameron versus Barrass matchup in favour of the first team. Only because Cameron's just too mobile for him. Barrass is probably better suited a bit closer to goal. He could probably flick back to Hawkins if we need that. But we know that Barrass just won't be able to go up the ground the way that Cameron does, and he'll just turn him around and get him back towards goal. So for over 4 quarters, I just don't think Barrass v Cameron is the right matchup. They might have to go to Sicily. They might have to hand over Cameron to Sicily if he's going to push really hard up the ground. So I think that's where the first team have got the advantage. That sort of high half forward line, Petrarca, Cameron, and Shea Bolton. I think they'd have those boys covered: Brayshaw, Barrass, and Rioli.
The forward line for the first team, Charlie Curnow, Tom Hawkins, Tyson Stengel. And the last line of defence for the second side, James Sicily, Brennan Cox, Callum Wilkie.
Yeah, once again, another advantage for first team, Gerard. Curnow, the Commonwealth medalist versus Sicily. Sicily's more suited to sort of a medium mobile aerial player, sort of think of like Bailey Fritsch type. I just don't think the first team have got a good matchup for Sicily in this game. But there's Wiedering on the bench. Wiedering's had a great season. We know, he's that sort of bookend player for Carlton. He's on the bench. He'd be a perfect matchup for Curnow, his Carlton teammate. So you can mix and match a little bit with Brennan Cox off of Hawkins. Cox could go to Curnow. Wiedering could go to Hawkins. I talked about Barrass coming back to Hawkins as well. So it'd be interesting to see how we get those matchups right. But it just feels like Sicily hasn't got the right matchup in this game. And also think Stengel, because he's got the advantage of knowing Hawkins and Cameron, obviously they're teammates. So, like even when I was doing this research, Gerard, like those 3 players alone for Geelong, Stengel, Hawkins and Cameron, those 3 have combined for 164 goals this season. Yeah. And they're in the same forward line in the All-Australian team, which is awesome. So, and you throw Bolton in there, you throw Shea Bolton in there with his speed. It's a scary good forward line. It's really good. So Wilkie's going to have his hands full with Stengel. We know Stengel's had a great year. But also too, if that doesn't go to plan, you've got Laird on the bench for the second team. And I know he's played all season on ball, but he did cut his teeth as a small defender early in his career. So plan B, Stengel lights up, Bolton lights up. You've got Laird you can call to. But I just think this forward group will get a truckload of good looks with all the clearance and contest advantage they've got up the field. And I think the first team will also have the aerial advantage and the ground level strength if the ball comes to ground. So that's how I see the forward line.
the interchange, so flexibility and bench depth. So for the first team, it was Mark Blitzavs, Andrew Brayshaw, Isaac Heaney, and Connor Rozee. And in our second side, we went with Chad Warner, Jacob Wiedering, Rory Laird, and Jack McRae.
Yeah, well, Heaney's a great matchup to go forward there. He just provides that headache because he's so good aerial, but he's got great speed and he's really strong one-on-one. We know Rozee can play that sort of high half-forward role with Bolton and Petraka. So that he's the player that can spell them. And Andrew Brayshaw is perfect to go into a packed midfield that's already in there, and he provides that sort of clean ball-winning options. And I spoke about Wiedering. He can go into that back line and play there and free up Cox or Sicily or those boys. And Laird, McRae and Warner, they've all had great seasons. They can play midfield, and with also, as I said, Laird can go back and Warner can spend some time forward.
So I think the Coaches Association voting for the best mentor of the year, I think McRae will beat Scott. So I think Craig McRae is coaching the All-Australian team with 5 Geelong players, and I think Chris Scott is coaching the second team.
Awesome. That's incredible. Do you want to know who I think was going to win?
I really do. So just some people have got this, some haven't. That's totally fine. Dave's got it. This reminds me of Australia versus Australia A. I'm barracking for the second team. Who is Paul Rifle? Dave, I've got the answer to that. Is the first team will steal James Sicily as the medical sub and just deny a player who probably should be in anyway, a la Paul Rifle. They will steal him and move him across to put a dent in the defence. So you've got it exactly where we're coming from, Dave. Sicily, sub for All-Australian team. That's from Luke. He can see the conspiracy theory. I used to love State of Origin, but imagine watching these teams play. I'd pay big bucks to go to that. Maybe the AFL could consider doing it as a fundraiser for grassroots footy. That's Kevin in Beaconsfield. And the centre square matchup's fascinating. Would love to see Cripps versus Walsh matchup. You feel like you know each other's games upside down. So you could potentially have the Cripps versus Walsh matchup and then Wiedering versus Curnow. Oh, how good. All right, take me to the heart of it.
Well, I'm like you, Gerard. And some of the listeners, when I was looking at this, I just thought, how good would it be to see these two teams actually go head to head, and with something that they were playing for. Like, this would be such a great game. And unlike All-Star games and Pro Bowls that they have in other sports where it's just fun, it would be good to see the best of the best go head to head. And I think I was sort of rooting for the second team when I was preparing this. But anyway,
That's
overall,
the Australian way.
Yeah, I think it is. Overall, though, I've got the first team. I just think they've got the advantage at stoppage and clearance, and also forward line with their aerial and ground level expertise. And as I mentioned about the first team's forward line, they've combined for 288 goals. It's incredible. But what does concern me in the midfield for the first team is that ball hunting nature. I spoke about the shape on the wings. So can they get drawn to the contest too often, which will leave Dacos and McCluggage on the wings in time and space? So I think that's the way that the second team could beat them. I really like the second team's forward line as well. So if they can create turnovers early in the chain, if they can deny Sard and Sinclair running off half back, I think they could be right in it. And, Fritsch, Lynch, Tex Walker, Charlie Cameron and Papley close to goal will provide headaches for any defence. So, I just think the second team, their strategy would have to be to, at the very minimum, break even at clearance if they're going to be any chance. That has to be their objective. If they can't, just simply they'll get beaten. I think overall the first team is just too strong. So I've got the All-Australian first team winning by about 25 points.
Okay.
If this was a head-to-head game with everything to play for.
Love it. So Chris Scott's summer project would be to strategise with that second team against that first team and see if he could narrow the 25-point margin.
That's right. Spot on.
Anyway, that's a bit of fun as we head to the bye. If you want to play along, 1300 736 736. We'll whack it up on socials. I think it's already there. You can see the second team lineup. So Bontempelli would be the captain of that side.
Yep.
We know that Tom Hawkins is the sort of the ceremonial captain of the first side. And who would be our vice captain in that? Sicily might end up being vice captain or Wiedering.
Wiedering, yep.
Although he's on the bench in the way that I've lined them up.